At the time of the battle, the old Academy Building on West High Street in Gettysburg was already a local landmark. Built about 1813-1814, the building was designed for educational purposes. It served as the first home of the Lutheran Theological Seminary from 1826 to 1832, and Pennsylvania College from 1832 to 1837. For many years afterwards, it was a private boarding school. In 1856, it was purchased by the Reverend David Eyster, who established the Gettysburg Female Institute. Eyster died in 1861, but his wife, Rebecca Reynolds Eyster, continued to operate the school for many years. Rebecca was described as a lady of culture and administrative ability. Upon his graduation from Pennsylvania College, their son, William Reynolds Eyster, also taught here. Attaining great popularity, the girls of some of the finest families in town were amongst the students here. Today, the Adams County Historical Society preserves a pamphlet of rules and regulations of the institution, and also a few diplomas. Here's an 1864 diploma for Lily McLean, who was a student here undoubtedly at the time of the battle. The old Academy Building is also one of the 9 buildings in the borough of Gettysburg today that still has an artillery shell sticking out of it from the actual fighting in 1863.
We're here in the cupola of the historic Eyster Academy Building on High Street in Gettysburg. This is a view that very few people have experienced, and we're very thankful to the owner, the English family, for allowing us up here today. Now, Tilly Pierce was a 15-year-old resident of the town. She was attending school in this very building on the morning of June 26, 1863. That day, Confederates of Jubal Early's division entered town to conduct a raid. Tilly wrote, "We were having our regular literary exercises on Friday at our seminary when the cry reached our ears. Rushing to the door and standing on the front portico, we beheld in the direction of the theological seminary a dark, dense mass moving toward us. Our teacher, Mrs. Eyster, at once said, 'Children, run home as quickly as you can.' It did not require repeating." Then in 1908, another student, Elizabeth McLean, wrote, "While in the girls' seminary in the old academy on Washington and High Streets, we were pretending to study. We heard a galloping horse and looking from the window saw Mr. Harvey Sweeney riding up Washington Street and calling out in a loud voice as he pointed to the seminary, 'The rebels are coming.' And sure enough, we could see them on the Chambersburg Pike. There were horsemen riding single file slowly down the hill. We did not wait for a formal dismissal of school, but ran pell-mell for our homes."
We are standing on the lawn at the Gettysburg Female Institute at the intersection of West High Street and South Washington Street. About noon on June 30th, 1863, 2 brigades of Union cavalry under the command of General John Buford rode up the Emmitsburg Road and into Gettysburg. Some 3,000 troopers galloped northward along Washington Street past this very spot. After days of uncertainty, the local citizens were overjoyed that the vanguard of the Union Army had arrived to protect them. The outpouring of spontaneous emotion was something that those who witnessed the event would never forget. Sally Myers lived on West High Street, a short distance from us. From her perspective, the feet of Buford's horses seemed shod with lightning. According to an interview she gave in 1909, "Along the street we stood, all the girls and women of the town. We had prepared food in advance and had baskets and trays in our hands. They came by, snatching in their hasty passage whatever they could lay their hands on. Sandwiches, pieces of pie, cold meat, bread, cake, cups of coffee, and bottles of water. And then we sang patriotic songs. The eyes of the soldiers blazed, they smiled, and some joined in the song. It was the last song many of those brave men ever heard, and the bite we gave was the last many ever ate." Walking south along Washington Street, Lavina Weirick was with another group of girls. "We sang our songs triumphantly. E pluribus unum, all hail to the Union. Cheer, boys, cheer. John Brown's body and others echoed through the air. A group of singers, old and young, stood at Powers Corner, Washington and High Streets, and our voices blended with theirs, and tramp, 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 the boys are marching, and rally round the flag, and Maryland, my Maryland echoed all along the line as we watched the marching of Buford's cavalry. Away past the corner of Breckenridge Street, which we had now reached, they marched, applauding the inspiring songs of both white and colored patriots. Tilly Pierce, who sang with a group of girls here at this very location, remembered, "A crowd of us girls were standing on the corner of Washington and High Street as these soldiers passed by. Desiring to encourage them, who, as we were told, would before long be in battle, my sister started to sing the old war song, 'Our Union Forever.' As some of us did not know the whole of the piece, we kept repeating the chorus. Thus we sought to cheer on our brave men, and we felt amply repaid when we saw that our efforts were appreciated. Their countenances brightened, and we received their thanks and cheers. After the battle, some of these soldiers told us that the singing was very good, but they would have liked to have heard more than the chorus." In their post-war writings, the soldiers themselves recorded their feelings of the event. William Hermans of the 6th New York remembered, "We were met by young girls at that place who dressed in white and red and blue ribbons formed along the road. And as we rode by, they sang their patriotic songs that made the blood flow quicker in our veins." Theodore Bean of the 17th Pennsylvania Cavalry remembered, "The people of the town seemingly were all on the streets, and a warm reception was given to the command. Groups of old and young men, women and children stood at the corners and at the churches and public buildings singing patriotic songs and indulging in demonstrations of joy that left no doubt of the painful anxiety felt by them and the sense of relief our presence afforded." The reception received by Buford's cavalrymen on June 30th, 1863 would never be forgotten by the soldiers. In 1903, during the 40th anniversary of the battle, veterans of Buford's cavalry got the idea to assemble the singing girls once more. They gathered 16 of them together and encouraged them to perform an impromptu concert for the veterans. In 1913, at the 50th anniversary, the girls were assembled one last time. There were only 6 singing girls left to sing patriotic songs for the surviving veterans. Reflecting on the events years later, Captain Hazelton of the 8th Illinois summed up the feeling of many of Buford's cavalrymen. To receive such a reception under such circumstances as we did was an inspiration. It awoke every feeling of chivalry in our souls. It recalled to the memory all the dear and loved ones we had left at home. It brought back with overwhelming force that love of country which had first impelled us to enlist. It inspired us to heroic deeds.